All right, let's get started. I'm Mandeep Singh, founder of mandeeps.com, and today we are doing a webinar on electronic signature and document automation. Live signature. So live signature is very similar to or comparable to DocuSign. You have a module that is fully functional and contained within your site. You don't have to send your data or traffic over to another site to get signatures. It's a complete e-signature solution. So we'll go ahead and cover this in this webinar today, and then I'll address all your questions, if any. If you're familiar with DocuSign, the UI is very intuitive, it's very similar. You can prepare and send your documents just by dragging and dropping fields and so forth. So some of the features really quick before we get into the demo and get into actually working with it is just like DocuSign, you can collect signatures and other custom data like custom text box, multi-line text boxes, and so forth, your custom fields. There could be multiple recipients to a document, so it doesn't have to be just one person. You could get documents from 2, 3, 4, as many recipients as you want on a single document. You do get to set the signing order, so it must be signed by recipient A first, then B, then C, and so forth. And we'll do a demo of that. You could add multiple documents in one request, so you can upload all your documents. Like if it's a real estate deal, you can do the disclosures and the listing agreement and all that in one shot, versus sending multiple documents for signature. There's workflow features built in. So after a user's done signing a document, you want them redirected to a specific URL. And then, of course, there's reusable templates. So if you're sending the same document over and over, you don't want to prepare it every time. You just do it once, you save it, and then you kind of basically reuse that. In terms of actually signing the document, the user can sign anywhere. So it's completely responsive. They can use a mobile device to sign. They can use a desktop. They can use a tablet in person to sign and so forth. So in terms of options to sign, just like some of the popular options that there, can just type in their name and it will create a signature for them automatically. Or the end user can actually use their mouse or their touch device to actually sign in a signature. So they have a choice of both. In terms of admins have full visibility. They can track the progress of the document, look at its current status, see if it's signed, if it's partially signed. There's notifications and reminders built in. So a notification can automatically go out to a user if they haven't signed the document, let's say in 3 days or something. All throughout, there's email notifications going on, asking them to sign and so forth. And they can all be customized to match your branding. And then all the documents, of course, are archived. So a user and an admin can always refer back to them and come back. And these are all stored within your DNN database. So they're not going on a cloud or anywhere else. It's all still within your DNN site. You have absolute full control. And like I said, anytime if anybody has any questions, please put them in chat. I'll look at it from time to time and I'll address them right away. A user can always download a copy of the document if signed or be prior to signed as a PDF and so forth. So let's talk a little bit about security and trust. So this was built to be compliant with both the eSign and UETA. So the eSign Act, to be precise, which basically asks for a lot of measures. Things like you must get a consent from the user before they can sign. They have to consent to electronic signature and archive and storage process. You also have to some kind of authenticate them, either to an email address, which means sending a unique email address, unique link to their email address, or if they log into your DNN site. So Live Signature supports both the account authentication and email authentication. Then there's tampering protection built in, and this is super important. So Live Signature has many checks and balances to validate the authenticity of the document. The signers, the signature, the document itself, everything has a unique ID, which is actually a hash created, which means even a slightest of change, even as small as a white space or a punctuation mark, will basically change the hash and will identify to the system that there's somebody tampered with the document, either through the database directly and so forth. And if there's a tampering detected, it will self-destruct the document to make sure that its authenticity is preserved. Throughout the entire process, an audit trail is maintained. That means every detail is logged with a date stamp, the user, the IP address, when a document is created, when it's sent, when it's viewed, when somebody consented, when somebody signed, all that is maintained. for the authenticity, a signature certificate is created every time a document is completely signed, and that includes a lot of technical data that combines everything, make sure that there's no tampering has been done with this signature. And this is an example of that document. All right, last, there is an integration with live forms. So this is a document automation part of it where you do not have to manually send out agreements or documents for people to sign. Well, they can go to your site, fill out a form. It will automatically generate an agreement, which they can automatically sign. So the whole process is fully automated. Well, we're going to look at all of that. So let's get started. And what we have here is a default installation of DNN 9.10.1, just the latest version I'm running. Just created a page called signature for demo and dropped the live signature module on it. So this is how the module looks. That's on the page. All right, so let's get started. I'm obviously logged in as a super user, so I have access to everything and all these additional tabs. So let's look at the admin tab to begin with. You could simply choose a role here. This is a security role who can send documents for signature. So if you're trying to do this open for all your users, then you would use a generic role, and it has to be a custom role that you create. You're not going to see built-in roles like registered and subscribers for security purposes, because you don't want to accidentally give this away to everybody. But let's say you have a legal department, you have a sales department who needs signature. So you can then create a role and give them access to it, and then they can go ahead and do that. And the only other thing we have in administration is a security, is the max file sizes that can be uploaded through the module. And these are PDFs, and that can be changed as needed. All right, so let's go back into documents. Assuming I have access to the module, I get to see the screen here, and I can then go ahead and send a document out. So let's go ahead and click new document. The very first thing it says upload or select document. Now you can browse a document through your DNN file structure, or you can upload one. And for this purpose, I have a sample agreement created. It's just a Word. I just put some lorem ipsum on a Word file, so we can quickly go through and do a demo. Now notice I could go ahead and create multiple documents. I don't have to have just one document. So I can go ahead and add another document to the same thing, and I can choose its order, which one appears first, which one appears second. And then it's going to be as many documents as I want. So that's super great. Now for just this demo, I'm going to get rid of one of these. I just need one. I'm going to give this a name, just call it sample agreement. And then let's add recipients, the people who are going to actually sign this document. So I'll add one called John Doe. I'm just making these names and emails up for the demo. And then I'm going to add another recipient because I want to show the multiple recipient concept. And I'll do Marianne as the second recipient. Now, same goes. If I want Marianne to sign the document first, I will move her on the top and John Doe at the bottom, and so forth. So the current order is I want John Doe to sign first. When he's done signing, then Marianne will get the information to sign the document. All right, let's click next. So this is the document that I uploaded, which now I see. Again, it's a very simple document. I just put some text and some options. We're going to look at much complex example towards the end, but just start with something basic here. So kind of structuring this or preparing this document for sending is very simple. On the top left here, we got our recipients. Now, since I added two, I see two of them there. So right now we're working with John Doe. And what I want to do is simply just drag information. So for example, the name goes there for John Doe. And notice as I drag this, I got some more options on the right with the font size, the width. And the width can be easily just changed by dragging and dropping. So I don't have to really work with that. And then the signature, we can grab that and put that down here. And the date signed, we can grab that and put that down here. Now, in the next complex example, we're going to look at some of the custom things like just a regular text box. And then here we get some additional fields like, is this a required? Means the user must type in some data before they can complete the document. Or we can pre-fill some data in here right now. For example, I can say, I don't know, president as a title maybe. And then I can have it read only, which means they cannot change it. They can only view it. So those are two other options we have. And the label here on the top is just for our own information, whether you're using live forms for the integration down the road, or if you're using your own API, just to know what that field is. This is not used anywhere else. So that's some of the custom data information you have. Okay, so now I have everything that I need here from John Doe. I'm going to switch this to Marianne and do the same thing. Just get Marianne's name down here, signature down here, and date right here. Okay, now that I've set my document up, I'm going to click next. I can put a subject, and this is a subject that is the email subject that they will see when they get the email. I'm just going to say sample agreement. The message I'm going to say please sign and return. And let's look at some of the other options we have. Now, when all parties have signed the documents, that means there's two parties here. Do we want to send a completed document to the recipient? If you say yes, an email will go out to each recipient with a completed document. And similarly, do we want to send a completed document to the sender? If you say yes, then that will go out as well. The other settings we have is we can have this document expire, so they can't sign it whenever they want. By default, it's 7 days from the day you send. So that's telling this document, this request will expire on 10/18, which is 7 days from today. I can change that number anytime. An automatic notification will go out 2 days prior to expiration, letting the end user or recipient know that your document is still waiting for signature. And then finally, the workflow is down here too. Once they're done signing, you can have them redirect to a different URL. And you type that URL here. All right, so now that we've done the basics, I'm just going to hit send. And I can see in my sent that I've sent a document for signature by John and Mary, and these are their emails, and the status currently is pending. What I'm going to do here is I have a email box set up to kind of catch these emails, even though these are fake email addresses. So I'm going to try and catch these emails going out so we can take a look what the emails are. So I'm going to bring that into the view, and here's my demo box. And I just see a few seconds ago an email came into John Doe with the subject sample agreement. So this basically says mandeeps@me.com, it's my email, is sent you a document to review and sign. And here's the message that I put in, and that was the subject of the email we put in. So as John Doe, I can go ahead and click on this and begin signing my document. So the very first thing you see when I'm signing as John Doe is I get an electric record and signature disclosure. And this right here is where your disclosure goes. This you would work with your legal team or grab a sample ERSD disclosure. This is a disclosure basically you're giving to end users that you are using electronic signature and you're storing that record in your database and so forth. And if they ever want a paper copy, or if they ever don't want to do business electronically and so forth. So whatever the disclosure might be for your organization will end up being here. And the user will say, basically, I agree to this disclosure before they can continue. This satisfies our authentication and consent requirement of many of the electronic signature apps. All right, let's hit continue. All right, so now that I look at it, if you notice, there's a cover ID stamped on the document on top left. There's the document down there. We're asking for signatures here. And I could have, if you had, let's say, 20 pages, you simply click on next and it takes you to the next place where it needs your attention. Again, kind of just modeled after how DocuSign and eSign and some of these other sites work. And I will simply click sign. Now notice this it signed without asking me anything because I was testing earlier and I was using the same email address, so it knows me already. But normally what it would do is it would pop this screen up first, the first time if you're coming to sign, and it will ask you, do you want to use a style just like this by typing your name, or do you want to actually draw your signature out or initials out? So it gives you that option. I'm just going to go with this one. I'm just going to say use this as my signature, adopt and sign. And there's the signature. Now, if you notice, there's underneath the signature, there's a signature stamp. And then there's a live signature text on the top going. So on this page, in this simple demo, all we were doing is just collecting one signature. If you notice, the name and the date is pre-filled and they can't change that. Again, there's no reason for them to be able to change that. This is pre-filled based on the time they're signing. And if I click next, I should be basically done at this point. And it says you're done. You will receive a copy once everyone has signed. So at this point, because there's a second recipient, an email would go out to the second recipient asking them to sign and complete the document. Let's go back to the signature, and the email will appear here and just came in as a switch. You can see an email came to Marianne now a few seconds ago, but we'll come back to it. I want to go back here and show what an admin sees while we're waiting for documents to get signed. Now, if you notice, the status has changed to partially signed, and I can filter all my documents, whether they're signed, partially signed, completed, and so forth. Now, what's interesting to see is the audit log. As I said, everything is being logged. And we look here, it started by saying that the document was created by super user because I'm logged in as a super user. And it has a date, timestamp, and an IP address. And then when we sent it out, that was logged too, that an email was dispatched to John Doe, and I was the one who authorized and sent it out. And then it says John Doe actually view the document using the link that was sent in the email. And then John Doe consented to using electronic signature. Then finally, John Doe actually signed the document. And at this point, because John Doe ended up signing the document, an email was dispatched to Marianne to go ahead and complete signing the process. So the audit log is very detailed and it's very transparent, exactly what's happening at all the times to the document. Now, for some reason, Marianne calls and says, I had never received that email. So that's what this is for. You can always send out an email out again as a reminder to your user. And as an admin, you can always download the document yourself and see how it looks as it is right now. And you can also retract or delete a document. If you do this, an email will be sent out saying the document was retracted or deleted. All right, so let's go back here, and then I'm going to click on this one and just kind of run this through this. The same exact process for Marianne. Marianne would click on it, and she would say sign. And since I've never did this with Marianne before, I'm getting that option to go ahead and do that. And now, as a user, I can always click on the download button right here on the bottom left, which basically gives me a PDF version of that document. So I can go ahead and take a look at it, print it out, do anything else I want to do it before I actually sign it. So that's certainly as an option there too. Oops, where we go right here. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and hit next here. So at this point, basically, we've got all the signatures we needed. And this will say, thank you, you're done. You will receive a copy once everyone has signed. And we can now go back here and take a look that the document is completed and it is signed. So let me just run through really quick if there's anything I missed before we get to a little bit more complex example. Yeah, so once a document's signed, I'm going to click on download here, and notice I got a zip file now. So one thing important is if you uploaded multiple documents, let's say there were 10 different documents, the user will actually have 10 different files as an individual document, not a one-bit file. And then we also include a signature certificate. And this is a certificate I was talking about, which kind of ties everything together. And we can see there were two signers, and their security levels were established by email. Their email was used as establishing their IP addresses were recorded. There's their signature stamps with their hashes and so forth, the document IDs, and the entire audit trail is also included in the signature certificate. So we can see that the last two things is Marianne viewed the document, she consented, and she finally signed. So that's the signature certificate, which basically kind of puts everything together. So we've seen how we've sent this. Now, let's say if you're an organization which we're sending these documents, hundreds of these, let's say every day. So you probably don't want to do this entire process all the time. You would want to go to templates. And you can create a new template, unless I'm just going to do the same thing with sample agreement just to kind of demonstrate. I'm just going to do with one so it's quicker. And what you want to do is simply set it up once. So I'm just going to go ahead and add the signature, name, and a date. And you can say sample agreement, sign and return. And once you've created a template, now there's my template. Every time you need to request signatures on that document, you simply come here, hit this, type in the actual email address of the person. So let's say if I was sending it to myself, and an email address. And then you just next through. And at this point, you have the option to override the subject message. And if you want to change any of the notifications, but ultimately it's just a couple clicks and you're done and you sent it out. So you don't have to keep gluing the things together over and over again. That's it. That's how easy templates are. And as you can see, I've already sent one out to mandeeps.com. So there's, by the way, so some more emails. All signers completed that first document, and because they did, the sender and both receivers received the documents. The actual documents also were attached, so they are there as well. And then the last one I just sent with the template is also waiting for my signature there. So all that's good, and I'm going to go ahead and shift our focus to live forms integration. And I'm just going to switch over to templates. And I have a template that I've already created, W9. We're all very familiar with this, those that are in the United States. It's a standard form to get your access to your tax ID or your social security number for tax reporting purposes. So I've already created this template. Again, the same process we just followed. And here's a W9 form. I'm asking for a full name, a business name, and so forth. So notice right here, this field here is just a name field, but the next one, I dragged a text box, normal text box, and I called it a business name. I gave it a label called business name. I am saying that this is a required field, so the user must have some data. But I'm also saying it's a read only, which means I don't want the user to actually type it in, and this will become apparent in a few minutes because I'm using live forms as a data collection method. So if you were using your own custom module, you would know have the data. You don't want them to then be able to change that when they go to sign it. You just want it stamped. And then we'll look at this momentarily. This is a little bit complex part of live forms, have nothing to do here with live signature, but I'll come back to that. And here, similarly, we have address, city, and state. They're just regular text boxes, and I gave them labels. Then I also put a text box here and called it SSN. Notice the font sizes have been changed here. So if I were to put in some numbers here, you can see it's nice and big. And if I can add dashes or something, so forth, kind of just fits in. And then finally, there's a signature and date sign. So this is a template that I've already set up, and this is ready to go. Now I'm not going to use this template here from live signature because I'm not manually requesting a signature. Although I could, if I needed to, I can just very simply click on plus sign here, just like with sample agreement. But what I want to show in this part of the demonstration is what if you had a page on your side where you were collecting. Oh, hold on, give me a sec. We have an unnecessary module on the top. Let's get rid of it. So let's say you had a page somewhere on your side and you were collecting this information. For example, you were already collecting everything that was in the form, like full name, email, business name, and their tax classification, and so forth. And you basically want all this information now to end up on that form in live signature, and at the same time have the user sign it. So let's look at that, how we can do that. This is live forms. For those who are not familiar with live forms, this is our form builder tool. So you can build the form as you want. I simply drag and drop a bunch of fields from the left. I can say if they're required or not, and so forth, and then build this form out. So one of the options, because there's an integration built in, one of the options I have here in the actions is when this form is submitted, I can have it go to live signature to get a signature on that document. And this is what I've already configured right here. And I'll just quickly show that to you. So here I get to choose a template name. Now, notice we had two templates created there, a sample agreement and W9. And it's showing me both of those options. So I'm saying, let's use W9 to get signature for this one. And then I simply map on the left here, you see everything that is in my live forms behind this model. So all this right here, full name, email, business name, all that stuff, it's coming from here. So actually, I'm sorry, this is the other way around. On the left is everything that was in my live signature. So if you remember, I created a business name text box with the label and address, a city, the SSN, the EIN. And on the right is all the fields in this form. And I can simply just map them by choosing which one goes where. So I'm saying the full name is the recipient one name. And if you had multiple recipients in your templates, then you would see those two, recipient 2, 3, 4, and so forth. So I just simply associated the fields here with the matching and corresponding fields in my template. And the label name we used in the template is what shows up here. So super simple process. There's final thing I want to do here is redirect to live signature. So what this does is as soon as they're done finishing this form, I will take them to live signature to get a signature. Now this only works if you're signed in. If you're not signed in, then you don't want to use this. Then you want to just have the notification email sent out to them where they can use that email to sign. Because there's two types of authentication. They can authenticate through an email or they can authenticate through their DNN login. So if you already have a user who's created an account on your site, well, you already know their name and email and so forth, and they've authenticated by logging in. So we can just have them redirect to live signature. So let's take a look at this really quick, and then I can explain some of the more options here. So let's quickly go through this. I'm just going to type in some information. And right. So now, if you notice, this was also required, but as soon as I put in SSN, this was no longer required because we need just one of the two fields. That is all feature of live forms, and I can cover that if needed. But all I'm really doing is just showing the integration from live forms. So if you notice, live form submitted that form. It took all the data it submitted. It passed to live signature in a way that live signature knows where to map it. And I have a document that is pre-filled and ready to go with the name, the business, and I chose the sole proprietorship option, and that's checked. I didn't set this up correctly because obviously it's still asking for some information here. But there's the address, the city, and then I put an SSN that's stamped down there. All I got to do is signature, and I'm done. So just to kind of put this together, live forms allows you to go ahead and capture data and then pre-fill this out, kind of complete your entire document automation process. I believe that's all that I have today for this webinar, and I'll be happy to address any questions at this time. And if anybody wants to see more on how forms is set up, I can certainly do that too. There's a on-form view action set up here. It's a simple action, says require that field if the other field is empty, and then we have a vice versa action, require the EIN if SSN is empty. So it kind of dynamically requires at least one of them to be always there, and so forth. And then one of the other tricks I did is I used a Unicode. So if they select one of these options, I choose which one they selected into and add it to a text box. Let me show that really quick. And I used basically a Unicode check mark, which then gets checked off to the checkbox in the actual form. And if you go to a signature page, you will see that the document I just came through is waiting for signature because I didn't sign it. I just simply left it. It's still pending. If you look at this audit trail, you can see that the document was viewed but never signed. That's it for this webinar.